So this is a brand new animated Christmas movie that's out on Netflix right now. And I gotta say, I'm definitely not the biggest fan of Christmas movies in general. Most of them I just don't care for, and I can't think of very many that I would actually call good. That I would consider actually good movies, not just entertaining Christmas movies. And for me to enjoy a movie like this, it needs to be a good movie, period. Because the whole holiday theme thing doesn't really get that many points from me on its own. It's basically like any other kind of movie. Either it's good or it's not. Because at the end of the day, the genre and the type of movie doesn't really matter that much. But what about this one? Is it actually a good film? Yeah, I'd say it is. And incidentally, it's easily one of the better Christmas movies I've seen in recent years. And one of the reasons is that, well, the whole premise and the idea behind it is kind of interesting. It's essentially an origin story for Santa and the whole phenomenon of Christmas gifts and whatnot. And the approach it took to that premise was also very creative. And you know, it's surprisingly grounded as well. There's not a ton of like magic or crazy fantasy elements in this. Now obviously I would say that this is aimed primarily at kids. And it is an animated movie, so I wouldn't call this exactly realistic. I mean, technically it's even set in a very fictitious place, so you know. I'm not claiming most of it is grounded in reality in any way, shape or form, but the way it approaches the mythological and magical aspects of Santa is very grounded. It sort of slowly builds up all these ideas that we have now, in a way that you could actually see happening in real life. Not just with Santa, but basically any mythology. It could have some kernel of truth to it. But over time things just get added to the original story and things eventually get out of hand. And you end up with a magical fat man with flying reindeer. Even though the truth it all started with might have been very far from that. So I really like the general premise here of making up an origin story for Santa. And I love the approach it took to telling that story as well. Because going the other way and starting with a magical fat man with flying reindeer would have been way too easy and way too boring. So I appreciate the creativity of what they did with this one. I also liked the art style and the animation itself. It felt distinct and a bit different. And I very much appreciated some of the more adult humor they snuck in there every once in a while. Oh, and I absolutely loved the little Tim Burton references that popped up a few times as well. And the voice acting was top notch too, no issues there either. Even the rest of the story that didn't really have anything to do with Santa or Christmas worked surprisingly well. Because the protagonist here is actually a young postman, of all things, who's sent to establish a post office in this remote village. A village that's very hostile and far from welcoming to newcomers. And his story and journey is actually the center of the movie here. His character and his arc is the one the movie actually focuses on the most. And the whole Santa thing is sort of an accidental byproduct of all of that. And yeah, I really liked what they did with that as well, and the way they brought those two storylines together. And the story of the village itself too, which is a whole nother aspect of the movie. I mean, there's actually a lot going on in this, beyond the obvious holiday themes. There's a surprising amount of depth here, and a lot of different smaller stories crammed into one. But the end result feels very coherent, and it all fits together pretty much seamlessly. So I think the writers on this one did a great job with all of that. Not only did they find a unique way to approach something like Christmas, but they actually managed to create a fun and compelling narrative as well. And I gotta say, at first I was a bit skeptical about this whole thing. Not only because of the kind of movie this is, but also because of the main character. Because he's sort of a spoiled brat and not very likable at all. In fact, at the very beginning I found him to be almost intolerable. However, that quickly gets fixed, and by the end of this he's actually very likable. So again, kudos to the writers for doing an excellent job with this one. I think they are the real stars of the show here, but the rest of the team did a good job too. And the end result is a very fun and enjoyable movie with a lot of heart. However, would I recommend it? Absolutely, especially if you're in that holiday mood and are looking for something new to watch. Because I have a feeling that this one is gonna be one of the standout movies this holiday season. So you know, maybe give it a peek, or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.